And one man who probably hasn't seen a coin in years is the world's richest man, Elon Musk. He has now closed... Well, if you...
He's probably got... Do you remember that... What's that cartoon where there's the very rich duck and he used to dive into a pool of coins? Do you remember? You remember that one. What's it called?
Don't know.
Oh, I don't know.
But if you're as rich as Elon Musk, when was the last time you ever held a coin or had coins in your pocket? Maybe I'm wrong, maybe he does. Anyway, he's just bought Twitter, hasn't he? For a jaw-dropping $44 billion, I think.
Yeah, £38 billion,
That's right.
wasn't it? Is that right?
I think that's right.
Anyway, it's been one of the most dramatic buyout dramas ever witnessed in tech. Shockingly, when the billionaire took over Twitter yesterday, the first thing he did was to fire the chief executive as well as the chief financial officer.
Yeah, but then he went into work carrying the kitchen sink, didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
He was making some sort of statement about he'd bought everything plus the kitchen sink. Anyway, something like that. For more, let's go to our national reporter, Theo Chikomba. And there he is.
Yes, that's
so
right. Good
tell
morning.
us the
You
latest
are talking
gossip.
about... Yeah.
Theo, tell us the latest gossip then on the Twitter takeover. Why should we care?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You are mentioning the price there, $44 billion, around £38 billion. And this saga has gone on for a while. It started back in January when Elon Musk bought some shares in the company, and by April he was the majority stakeholder. And after that he started having meetings with those on the board, and there was some friction times during that time. And of course we are where we are here today. But in July he almost wanted to do a U-turn, but it didn't quite work because he got so far into the negotiations that say by law he can't go back. But what does this mean for the average person? Well, Elon Musk has criticised Twitter in the past, saying their policies are too strict and maybe holding back some voices which were on Twitter and some which still are. And at the moment, you know, people have been saying some political figures, maybe some who might be called divisive, haven't been allowed to voice their opinion. And interestingly, in a couple of weeks' time in the US, there's going to be midterm elections, and people have been talking about what this will mean, what kind of people are going to be allowed back on Twitter, and whether he's going to implement what he thinks is, or he says, is a more free platform for people to go on, whether he'll implement that straight away. But in terms of going forward, we're not too sure yet. People have been saying, well, this is going to be huge, and others saying, well, this is going to cause chaos. Conservatives in America have said that the company in the past criticising them, saying it's not allowing them to say what they want to say, saying they're liberals, holding them back and curtailing them, you know, having freedom of speech. But Twitter at the time denied, saying that is not the case. Well, what's going on forward from here? We are, of course, just behind me over my right shoulder, we're at the Twitter UK office, and I'm sure many of those staff here will be thinking, what happens next? As we've already seen overnight, a number of senior executives have been taken away.
OK, Theo, thanks very much indeed. Well, let's talk to the Deputy Director of the Free Speech Union, Ben Jones, who joins us now. Ben, morning to you. Look, is this a victory for free speech, or does this raise concerns about the possibility of sort of increased hate speech? I mean, it's a very fine line, isn't it?
Good morning. Our hope would be that the Musk takeover will herald a new age of free speech on Twitter. Who knows if he will succeed or not, but I think his ambition is the right one. The problem as we sit at the Free Speech Union is the censorship that is absolutely rampant across social media platforms from big tech. And aside from American conservatives being censored, what we have in our inbox day after day tends to be gender-critical feminists, women who don't agree with trans ideology, who are being censored, banned, suspended, kicked off various platforms for saying pretty innocuous things. So that's the type of casework that we deal with most of the time. And we would hope that with Musk in charge, that women and men will be free to express their views on all sides of that debate without fear of being arbitrarily censored.
Does this deal actually make him one of the biggest, if not the biggest, publishers in the world?
Potentially. I mean, there is this long-running argument about whether Twitter is a publisher or not, or just a platform. I think he would see Twitter as being a public square. And I see this morning that he's spoken about the importance of having a shared public square where people of all sorts of political views and philosophies can come together. And interestingly, he spoke about the danger of both the left and the right splitting off to their own social media platforms. Former President Trump has set up his own social media platform. And the loss of the engagement between both sides in political debates and the harm that does to society. So I think it's very important that you go through day-to-day life encountering people with different perspectives and that you get along with people. And I think there's not enough of that. And I think we do need a unified public square. And in today's day and age, Twitter is a big part of that.
Well, yeah, and look, there are some very sensible things in what he said, which I know the Free Speech Union sort of really pushes for, and it's the idea of hearing, having a free voice, being able to say what you think, but hearing all sides, because that then moderates our behaviour, doesn't it? It can change our own viewpoints. The problem with something like Twitter, though, which makes it quite problematic, is that it tends to become an echo chamber. People only hear the voices or follow the voices that they themselves agree with.
I think that is a danger, but I think it's a bigger problem if Twitter decides that it will only broadcast and air the views of people who agree with California tech companies and their employees. And if you have a climate like that, which arguably is what's been going on for the last few years, certainly, that you will have the splintering of the public square into rival social media platforms, and the right will go off to a right-wing social network and the left or the progressive side of politics will stay on Twitter, and those sides will not be engaging with each other. So I think that would be the bigger danger. I also think it's important perhaps to take a broader view about this. To have some sense of perspective. Most people in Britain aren't on Twitter and never will be. So I think it's important to address why this matters for those people. So if you're watching this and you have no interest in Twitter whatsoever, I think there is a bigger problem, and I think the Elon Musk takeover is part of a fight back against the idea that big tech companies in California have the right to determine what British subjects can think or say. And we've seen this recently at the Free Speech Union with PayPal, who suspended our account. We forced them to backtrack. It's been reinstated. But we are in a world now where if your financial service provider doesn't like your political views, you can have your account cancelled. And we've seen that again this week with the barrister Sarah Phillimore, who was hosting a book launch via Eventbrite. And they've pulled the listing because they just don't happen to like her views about the gender debate and about the debate about women's rights and trans issues. So I think the Twitter takeover is an important fight back against that prevailing climate. And I think there is a bigger issue that is of interest to people who aren't on Twitter and who never will be.
OK, Ben, good to talk to you.
Thank you
very much.
A lot of people online can't get their head around why he walked into the headquarters with a sink. But apparently he did post a video, I think that's where we've got the footage from, actually, on Twitter with the caption saying, "I'm entering Twitter headquarters, let that sink in."